I'm only going to say a little bit about the prologue to the wife of Bath's Tale, and maybe we'll come back to it because I want to emphasize the tale. But I do want to emphasize in the prologue, or the part of the prologue that I do want to emphasize, is what she says about authority. and not just the opening lines, where she says, "Experience, though no authority were in this world, were right enough to me, to speak of woe that is in marriage." And the reason I bring that up is because a lot of what Chaucer is addressing in the Canterbury Tales is this idea of authority. What is an authority? Okay? And you see throughout the tales, he'll have various pilgrims or characters refer to different writings. Okay? You get Augustine referred to a lot. You get Cicero referred to a lot. You get Scipio Africanus referred to a lot, who writes a thing about dreams. You get Macrobius referred to a lot. And part of the reason for that is because there is an emphasis in the Middle Ages on citing authorities, having people that you can refer to as knowledgeable sources. That is exactly akin to what you do in papers. I mean, you have quotation. My voice is going. You have quotations in such that you're referring to. Why? What's the purpose for those in your papers as well as here? Exactly. It gives validation to what you were saying. In other words, it's saying, look, don't just believe me. Don't just listen to what I say. Listen to what these others say. But one of the things Chaucer does with that, and it's what I counsel, students to do also, is Chaucer uses a lot of these authorities to argue against. Okay? And we saw, even in Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, we saw the same kind of a thing going on. When Sir Gawain, at the end, realizes the error of his way, what does he immediately start to do? He talks about Adam and Eve. He talks about Samson and Delilah. He talks about David and Bathsheba. Okay? Those are examples of authorities in kind of the negative way. Okay? Well, the wife of Bath is going to do the same thing here. She's going to go on and on about Jerome. And Jerome, in a work, St. Jerome, guy who created what's called the Vulgate Bible, translated the Bible into Vulgate Latin, she's going to go on and on about what Jerome says about women. Now, Jerome wrote a work, I don't know if you have a footnote about it, titled something along the lines of Against Jovinian. And this is in some letters and such, where Jovinian takes one view of chastity in marriage and Jerome takes another. Okay? Jerome's perspective essentially is chastity is the perfect state. And what he means by that is unmarried chastity. Okay? Unmarried, perfect celibacy is the perfect state. Because St. Paul says, if you can remain celibate and unmarried, do it. Why? Because you won't have as many problems. You won't have as many cares. But St. Paul says, most people can't. So, if you can't, get married. Okay? That's essentially the tack St. Jerome takes. Jovinian essentially says, well, not necessarily. If you can't stay chaste, get married. If your spouse dies, get married again. If that spouse dies, get married again. St. Paul essentially says it's okay to remarry, and the implication is once. Okay? Divorce, no. But remarriage, if your spouse dies, that's okay. But after that, you ought to stay single. Okay? So that's the context of what she is arguing for, because what does she do throughout her prologue? What is she ultimately saying in her prologue?
That her experience, in her case, trumps that authority.
Her experience trumps that authority. And what's her experience?
5 marriages.
5 marriages. Why?
For money.
money largely. Why else? Has something to do with her gap teeth. Because she can't stay single and not burn, to use St. Paul's, not burn fires of hell, not burn, sexually burn, not be promiscuous, okay? But she tells us why she marries. And the overarching reason isn't sex. It's money, okay? She marries her husbands, they die. We're never told exactly how they die, but it's kind of implied, or it is implied that they're natural deaths, and she's just fortunate that she chooses men that are wealthy and then die quickly, okay? So how does her prologue, which is about her relationship with her husbands, fit what she says in her tale? What kind of relationship, let me put it this way, what kind of relationship does she have with her husbands? Individually.
Well, some of them are loving. Some of them she gets beat.
Okay.
But then she loves the one that beats her.
Right.
Yeah, kind of weird there.
Not the one that loves her.
Okay.
She has power. She says like she has power over their body.
Exactly. That's what I was getting for. She says, quoting St. Paul says, you are not the owner of your body if you're in a married relationship. Your body belongs to your spouse. So you can't deny yourself to your spouse. Okay? And so she says she makes her men, her husbands, give her their bodies whenever she wants, implying she has mastery. She has control. So what does the prologue have to do with the tale? What's the tale about?
Rape.
Okay. It includes a rape. But the rape serves a purpose. What does Guinevere ask of the young man who rapes the woman?
To find out what women truly desire.
To find out what women want. Okay? Mel Gibson did a movie about that. Didn't he? Okay? And Helen Hunt. So, that's the overarching thing. Now, the entire tale that the wife of Bath tells us, and the prologue too, is 99% of the time said to be anti-feminist. Or let me rephrase that. It is recent. Cross that out. I misspoke. If anything, it's anti-feminist. Okay? She is responding to the anti-feminism of the church. She's responding to the anti-feminism of Jerome. So if it's anti-feminist, then it is feminist. Okay? So, let's skip the rest of the prologue and go to the tale. If we have time, we can come back to the prologue, because I do want to finish what we're going to do with Chaucer tonight, so we can go on to other stuff next week. Okay, now, from what we've been told about the wife of Bath, I do need to go back for one other thing. One thing that Chaucer is known for, and we'll see it with the wife of Bath, is that Chaucer fits the tale to the teller. And what I mean by that is, with the description that Chaucer gives us in the general prologue of each of the pilgrims, and then also what we get in the prologue to each of the pilgrims' tales, Chaucer fits the tale to the teller, or the teller to the tale, whichever way you want to look at it. In other words, the knight tells a tale that really only the knight could tell. And the wife of Bath tells a tale that really only the wife of Bath could tell. So how does Chaucer do that? Okay. The descriptions of the characters that he gives us in the prologue create an image in our minds of the teller. If we did a word association thing, and I had you come in, no books or whatever, and I just said, wife of Bath, what would you immediately tell me? Slut. Okay, what else? Black Widow. Ooh, you guys are cruel. Sex. Big.
Feminist.
What was it?
Feminist.
Feminist. Temper.
Sly.
Sly. Okay. Take all of those words. Now, do those apply to the tale she actually tells? Not the prologue. The tale. Do we see sex? Yes. Do we see someone who is sly? Oh, yeah. Do we see a black widow? Kind of. With how the loathly lady acts. Okay. In other words, the characteristics of the personality of the teller of the tale come out in the general introduction and in the prologues. And then we see the character, the real character, fully employed, as it were, in the tale they tell. Okay? Now, having said that, look at the wife of Bath's tale. Notice she kind of pulls a Sir Gawain on us, and we go back to King Arthur's time. But she gives us a little interesting side twist. In the old days of King Arthur, page 298, of which that Britain speaketh great honor, all this land fulfilled of fairy, meaning there were fairies up and down the land. Elves, if you want. Yes.
What line number?
The very beginning of her tale, line 856.
It's page 298. That's just the beginning of
About
He's got the single, not the concise edition. All this land was fulfilled of fairy. The elf queen with her jolly company, which we'll be reading about next week with Lawnval, danced full often many a green mead. This was the old opinion as I read. That is, this was the common idea. Okay? And one little side note. In medieval English literature, it's never a good idea if you're riding out in the woods to get off your horse, lean back against a tree if it's a nice spring day and the bees are buzzing and the birds are singing and you're sleepy, to fall asleep off in the woods. Because that's when the fairies come and take you. Okay, I mean, literally, they come, they take you, you get taken off to the land of the fairies, where you're there for one of two reasons that you get taken off to the fairy realm. One, you're a slave, or two, you're another slave, a sex slave. I mean, it's pretty much, that's it. And Lawnval and this aren't the only two words. I mean, there are a whole bunch of things that talk about the fairies dealing with people this way. Okay, such that it has entered the English kind of national consciousness that fairies are not people you ought to trust. Okay, and there are still people in England today who would swear upon a stack of Bibles that fairies are real. Okay? Real. You think I'm kidding? I'm not. I mean, there are people who, if they're out hiking in the woods or going for a long walk, etc., and they come across
yeah.
a ring of toadstools. They will not walk into that ring of toadstools. Because according to some stories, the ring of toadstools is like a doorway into the realm of the fairies. Great film. I love the film. And I'm completely forgetting the title. Oh, A Fairy Tale. Anybody seen it? Dude. Has anybody seen it? With Mel Gibson. But he doesn't show up till the end. Okay? And it's about what some people still say wasn't a fraud and a hoax. But it's about a fraud or a hoax that took place in the early 20th century. It's based on a true event of these little girls in, I think it is Yorkshire, who took pictures of fairies.
Does it have have like little girls in an attic or something as the opening scene?
I think so.
I've seen that.
Father is off fighting World War One. Okay. This thing was so big. This story was so big. Okay. So Arthur Conan Doyle got involved in it
Oh wow.
because Conan Doyle was a believer in fairies. Okay. Eastman Kodak, the guy for whom the company is named, got involved and testified that the photographs were real, were not fake. Okay? Whole bunch of people. I mean, were completely certain this stuff was all true. It was only finally, quote unquote, proven to be a hoax. When was this? About 15 years ago. Yeah. One of the girls' deathbed confession. Said it was, yeah, she should have died 5 minutes earlier. You know, deathbed confession said, it was false. Though it was never shown how they falsified the images. I mean, they're not like little stick figures, I'm a fairy with wings, kind of, because they look entirely, completely lifelike. Do an IMDb search for A Fairy Tale. It's a really good movie, actually. Strongly recommended. But back when fairies ruled and roamed the land, she says, I speak of many hundred years ago, but now there aren't any more fairies. Why? Because the elves have all sailed west, according to Tolkien. No. Why aren't there any fairies? Because of limiters and other holy friars. Well, go back to the previous page for just a moment and notice line 297, the words between the Sumner and the friar. She was interrupted, and so now it's like she's going to take a little slap at them. Just the previous page. Page 297, about line 830. The friar interrupts her. And so she starts her tale and she kind of takes a little dig at the friars. If it weren't for all these blankety blank friars walking around the countryside and doing what? Saying prayers. It's like the prayers scare the fairies away. Okay? She says there would be fairies, but now there aren't. And now, because there aren't any fairies, line 878, women may go safely up and down in every bush or under every tree. There was no other incubus but he. Who's the he? The friars. Okay, now what's an incubus? An incubus is a demonic spirit that sleeps with women in their sleep and impregnates them. Okay, but
It's a safe way to cheat on your husband.
yeah. Honest, honey, I'm not cheating. It must have been an incubus. And for men, we get one too. It's a succubus. Okay? But here, it's not a demonic spirit, or is it? It's a friar. Okay?
It's debatable.
Yeah, it's debatable. And he will do them nothing but dishonor. So, during the realm of period of King Arthur, he had in his house a lusty bachelor. That on a day he came riding from the river, and it happened that as he was alone, he saw a maid walking before him, of which maid anon, despite her will, her heed, by very force he bereft her of her maidenhood. So he rapes her. For which oppression, okay, he gets brought before King Arthur. And we're told by the course of law, he should have lost his head. The law says, the Pentecost Oath says, according to Sir Thomas Mallory, you don't rape women. We don't do that in Arthur's kingdom. Okay? But Arthur gives the judgment to Guinevere. Why? The courtly love, exactly. And the woman is one of Guinevere's women. She ought to have a say. And so what does Guinevere do? She doesn't say off with his head. She says, line 902, Thou standest yet in such array that of thy life yet hast thou no surety. You don't have any guarantee that you're going to live. I grant thee life if you can tell me what thing it is that women most desire. You will live if you can tell me what it is women want most. Okay. Now, obviously, does Guinevere know the answer? Duh, she's a woman. Does he know the answer? Face it, guys, we don't have a clue. It's part of the whole game, you know. Does she really mean that? I don't know. Beware and keep your neck bone from iron, that is, from the knife blade. And if thou canst not tell it anon, yet I will give you some time. And so she pauses, seemingly. Can you tell me what it is women want most? And she says, and if you can't tell me now, I'll give you time to figure it out. You have a year and a day. Be back here a year and a day from now and have the answer, or this will be separated from this. Okay? And at the last, 9:15, he chose for himself to go and come again right at the year's end, with such an answer as God would him provide. Please, 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 God. Okay? And so what does he do? He takes his leave and winds forth his way. He seeks every house and every place to learn what thing women love most. But he could arrive in no coast or region where he might find in this matter two creatures according in fair, that is, in fellowship. He can't find any two people agreeing. Some said women love best riches, kind of like the wife of Bath. Some said honor. Some said jollity. They would, what was the song Tina Lauper made famous? Not Tina Lauper. Cyndi Lauper made famous in the 80s. Girls just want to have fun. Some rich ray. They want to be dressed to the nines. Some said lust in bed. Well, yeah, maybe you could say that it's the wife of Beth too. And other time to be widowed and married. Now, I kind of think that's the wife of Beth in all of them. She wants all of those things, right? When that we are flattered and pleased. A man shall win us best with flattery. Top of the next column. And with attendance and with busyness. Be we, what? Elimed, limed. Limed was used to catch birds. Okay? Be we caught, both more and less. That is, guys, you want to catch a girl, what do? Flattery. What does attendance mean?
Pay all kinds of attention.
Exactly. Pay her attention. Shower her with flowers and letters and notes and emails and stuff. Okay? And with busyness. Fawn over her. And some say that we love best to be free and do right as pleases us. And that no man reprove us of our vice. Don't say anything about what I'm doing. But say that we are wise and nothing nice. That doesn't mean say that we're wise but not nice at all. It means say that we're wise and not foolish. Okay? Truly, there is none of us all, if any man will claw us on a gall or on a sore, that we will not kick. For he saith us sooth. What does that mean? You speak the truth to us, that's not it. That's not what honey, am I too fat? Do I look good in this?
It's always no to fat, yes to good.
No to fat, yes to good. Okay? But sometimes the sands, just whoosh, out from underneath.
No way out.
It takes quite a long time to build those sand traps.
The Princess Bride has it correctly.
Uh,
As you wish. That's pretty much the right answer. Okay? And some say that great delight have we to be held stable in also secret or in secret. And in one purpose steadfastly to dwell and not to betray anything that men tell us. So he's getting the whole gamut of the answers here. But that tale is not worth a rack steel. Party, which means what? By God. Okay? Pardon me, means by God. Literally, me. Party, we women know nothing. This is line 950. Hella. We know not how to keep a secret. Witness. And then we get a tale. Okay? Tale of Mida. And then skipping a bunch. Go over to about line 9. Where? 980 or so. We can no counsel hide. The remnant of the tale, if you will hear, read Ovid. In other words, go to an authority. Don't listen to me. Read the real version. Okay? And there you may learn. This night, so now we're back to the wife Beth. She kind of goes off onto an authority and she quotes a story. She talks about another story. She says, this night of which my tale especially, when that he saw he might not come thereby, that is to say, what women love most, within his breast full sorrowful was the ghost. Interiorly, his soul is thinking, you're a dead man. You're never going to find this out. So home he goes. Seemingly, he's gone everywhere. He's asked everyone he can find. And he says, I'm a dead man. So he heads back home to face his judgment. He might not sojourn or delay. The day was come that homeward must he turn. And in his way it happened him to ride in all his care under a forest side. Whereas he saw upon a dance go ladies 24 and even more. So he comes across 24 and more women dancing in the forest. Toward the which dance he drew, fell full eagerly. He's thinking, well, there's 24 women I haven't asked. Maybe one of them has the answer. In hope that some wisdom should he learn. But before he comes there, they disappear. Fairies, not there when you need them. No creature saw he that bore life, save on the green that is in the meadow. He saw sitting a wife. It only means woman. Doesn't mean a married woman. A fouler white there may no man devise.
oh.
So think of the ugliest woman you can imagine, and then make her uglier. And that's what he sees, As what in what's the movie? I love making references to popular. Men in Tights. Robin Hood Men in Tights. One of Mel Brooks's greatest. They go to rescue Robin, and the blind guy, I can't remember his name. Achu. Achu goes and he's dressed and he's got a breast here and a breast here, and they're like, man, you look like a bleeping Picasso. Okay, you got to understand the Picasso reference. Okay? So think of a Picasso. Again, the night this old wife can rise. That is, he's coming. He sees her from a distance, and the implication, he's going, whoa, horse, And she stands up and comes up opposite to him. And she says, Sir Knight, hereforth ne lift no way. That is, there's no road through here. Tell me what you seek by your fay. And he's like, no way, lady. Peradventure it may the better be. These old folk know many things. And he says, my dear mother, says this night, I'm dead, unless I can say what thing it is that women most desire. Can you tell me? I would well quit your hire. That is, I would requite your hire, your pay. I would do whatever you want. Shouldn't have said that. Plight me thy troth here in mine hand. Promise me you will marry me. Right now, right here. And the next thing that I require thee, thou shalt do it if it lie in thy might. So, it's two parts. He has to promise to marry her, and the next thing I ask of you, you will do it, if it lies in your power. And I will tell you it before nightfall. I'll tell you what you need to know. Have here my troth, said the knight. I grant. So whatever it is he literally does, he says, okay, yeah, I'll marry you. Tell me. Notice, plighting his troth, pledging to marry her is not what?
Mary.
It's not marrying her. Getting engaged is not the same thing as walking down that aisle or going in that courtroom. It all comes down to the aisle and the courtroom. It's the actual doing of it. And even that is not everything. Because what must still happen for the marriage to be? It must be consummated. Okay? If it's not consummated, the church doesn't really regard it as a marriage. I don't know about the state. I don't think the state really cares, frankly. Okay? Yeah, I mean, you can easily get it annulled. So, she says, thy life is safe, for I will stand thereby. Upon my life, the queen will say as I say. So, let's see, which is the proudest of them all, that wearing a coverchief, that wears a coverchief or a hairnet, that dare say nay of what I shall teach you. Let's go for it without more speech. And so they ride on, and they see the queen sitting as a judge. Assembled be to hear his answer, and afterward this knight was commanded to appear. To every wight commanded was silence, line 1032 or so, and that the knight should tell in audience what thing that worldly women love best. And you can imagine all the knights are, what is it they want, please? And with manly voice, the man speaks. My liege lady, generally, said he, women desire to have sovereignty, as well over their husband as their love, and for to be in mastery, him above. This is your most desire, though you may kill me. Do as you list, as you desire. I am at your will. And in all the court there was neither wife, nor maid, nor widow, that contraried that he said. In other words, they're all like, yeah, exactly. Damn, how'd she find that out, you know? And with that word, up starts the old woman that told him, and she says, Mercy, my sovereign lady queen, ere that your court depart, do me right. I taught this answer to the knight, for which he plight me his truth there. The first thing I would him require, he would do if he lay in his might. Before the court, then pray I thee, sir knight. Notice she has to do it publicly, so that the knight is kind of bound by his oath. I require thee, sir knight, that thou take me unto thy wife, for well thou know that I've kept thy life, and if I say false, say nay upon thy fay. The knight says, oh, damn, alas and well away, is medieval version of damn. I know right well that such was my behest, my promise. For God's love, give me another request. Go ask me to kill a dragon. Or an ogre, or, something else. But take all my good, that is, take all my property, all my possessions. Take my life. Let my body go. Okay, keep in mind, one here, eye up here, nose over here, ear, She's hideously ugly. For though, the lady says, nay, I shrew us both, I curse us both. For though that I be foul, old, and poor, I would not for all the metal, nor for the ore that is under the earth, or lies above, but unless I could be thy wife and also thy love. For all the gold in the world, she says, oh man, I'm yours. You're mine. And he's like, ugh. My love, nay, my damnation. Alas, that any of my nation should ever so foul, disparaged be. He's saying, if I were to marry you, what happens to me and my nobility? It goes through the toilet. You will bring me down. What's he saying about himself? I'm too good for you. I mean, he needs to be, I don't know, ladies, pick your perfect guy, Brad Pitt or something. I mean, okay? He says, no. But all for naught. The end is this, that he constrained was. He must her wed, and take this old wife and go to bed. Now would some men say, perhaps, that for my negligence I do no cure to tell you the joy and all the array, that at the feast was that same day. To which thing shortly answer I shall. I say there was no joy nor feast at all. Because all the people at the court are going, oh, poor guy. Man, she's hideous. Okay? There's nothing but heaviness and sorrow. Next morning, he marries her. And all day after, he hides like an owl. So woe was him, his wife looked so foul. Great was the woe the knight had in his thought when he was with his wife a bed he brought. Okay? Custom for wedding guests to escort the bride and groom to their bedroom. Not to the front door of the house or a castle so that he could come, I'm going to sleep over in this room and she's going to be with. No, to the bedroom. He walloweth. What does that mean? He wallows and he turns to and fro. And his old wife lay smiling evermore and says, oh, husband, dear husband, benedicite, that's God bless you, fareth every night thus with his wife as ye? Is this what usually happens on the wedding night? The husband sits there in bed and goes, oh, hell, damn. Yeah, what have I gotten myself into? And she's like, you. Is this the law of King Arthur's house? Notice, it's the second thing we've read where we have questions being made about the chivalry of Arthur's court. Is every knight of his so dangerous? Meaning standoffish. I am your own love and your wife. I am she which saved your life. And certainly, never did I wrong to you. Okay? She's saying, I have only done what is right to you and for you. And this is how you treat me? Because how is he behaving?
Ungrateful.
Like a jerk. Ungrateful. Good old word that we don't use enough anymore. Boorish. He's a cad. Okay? Why fare ye thus with me this first night? Ye fare like a man had lost his wit, that is, his mind. What is my guilt? She's saying, what have I done wrong? It's kind of like, it's not really the fact that you've done anything wrong, it's more that you are. Okay? For God's love telleth, and it shall be amended. And he says, amended? That's a tall order, lady. Amended? Nay, it will not be amended forever. Thou art so lowly and so old also, and thereto cometh so low a kind. It's not only that she's old and ugly and wrinkled and saggy and all those things. So low a kind. What does that mean?
Lower.
Lower class. She is of low birth.
Don't the nerds usually tumble the milkmaids?
Yeah,
Why is that now a problem? I mean, he didn't have a problem.
because tumbling the milkmaids is not the same as
Marrying.
marrying them.
Well, he's already married to him. He might as well go ahead and tumble.
But I don't think
Unless he has a back over her face. Oh,
They had bags. They were kind of
They
thick.
do sex.
yeah, like, yeah.
I get the impression it's not just her face that's lovely.
Oh, well, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Think Shakespeare's sonnet 130. My mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun. You know, if snow is white, her breasts are dun. What color is dun? Dirty laundry water. Okay? Pretty disgusting. Okay? So, thou art so low a kind that little wonder is, although I wallow and I twist about. So would God my heart burst. Please, God, kill me now so I don't have to do this.
Well, you have that option.
Sure did. Is this your problem? She says. Yes, duh. That's modern version of no wonder is. Now, sir, I could amend all this if I wanted to. Before 3 days go by. So well you might bear you unto me. In other words, I could change all this as long as you will give yourself to me. But for ye speak of such gentilessa. Gentilessa, as is descended out of old riches. That therefore should you be a gentleman. Such arrogance is not worth a hen. Okay? Gentilessa are noble qualities. You could say this is what this represented on Sir Gawain's shield. All those qualities Sir Gawain is supposed to have had. Okay? Courtesy, manners, perfection in his 5 fingers, perfection in his 5 senses, joy in, trust in the 5 joys of Mary. And all of it finally getting subsumed almost in that one word, compassion, which again means co-suffering with. Right? She says, you talk about gentilessa. You talk about nobility. And look how you act. Because for him, what is he talking about when he says low degree? Nobility equals birth, genetics, not behavior. And she wants to say, no, nobility is all about behavior. And that, by the way, is to some extent also what she's getting at in the prologue. Such arrogance is not worth an end. Look, who that is most virtuous always, privy and apart, and most intendeth always to do the gentle deeds that he can. take him for the greatest gentleman. Notice what she's saying there. It's not the person who does all the great gentle deeds where? In public, in the court, where people can see them. It's he who acts nobly behind closed doors. Not out on the presidential campaign, but with his family, with his or her friends. Okay? There's a great line in the fourth Harry Potter book, which I'm teaching in one of my other classes right now. And it's Sirius Black talking to Harry, Ron, and Hermione when they go off to Hogsmeade. And Hermione makes a comment, if you're familiar with the books, about Barty Crouch Sr.
Oh, yeah.
And Sirius says, you want to know the measure of a man? See how he treats his inferiors, not his equals. Okay? This is much the same. See how he treats his inferiors, not out in public, where people can watch you and say, oh, well, he's magnanimous. He's giving all this stuff away. But how he treats them in private, when he's berating them or belittling them. Okay? Christ will, which means desires, wishes, that we claim of him our gentilessa. That is, Christ wants our nobility, our noble qualities, to be descended from him, to come from his behaviors, his actions, not of our elders, not of our parents, our lineage. You need a great example of this, and it's something in current popular culture. Get on Netflix and watch Downton Abbey.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Okay? Great BBC production set in the early 20th century. Okay? And a great deal of it is about the manners of the upper class versus the manners of the lower class. And you have a great character down here, Mr. Bates, who is as fine a gentleman as there is, and you have a great character up here who is as fine a gentleman as there is. The Lord
Grantham.
Lord Grantham, sorry, thanks. And you also have a character up here who's not so great. Okay? Lady Grantham. Maggie,
The Dowager Count.
The
Yeah.
Dowager Countess, yeah.
Maggie Smith's character, who's just,
Great.
of course, she's perfect in everything she does. Okay? For though they give us all their heritage, that is the name, the history, the belongings, for which we claim to be of high parage, that is parentage. I mentioned, A Knight's Tale earlier. What does Heath Ledger's character need in order to fight in the jousts?
Symmetry.
Papers of patent nobility. Has to be shown that he is of noble birth. Okay. And by the way, the character that he plays, what's the guy's name? The other name. Sir Ulrich von Liechtenstein. Real character. Real person. Wrote a book about being a real knight in the 14th century. Talking about the joust tournaments he fought in. So they take this real guy, and he wrote a whole story, a book also about how to be a knight, what it is to be noble, etc. Okay, and go off with that onto the movie. She says, yet may they not bequeath for nothing to none of us. What? Their virtuous living. Unfortunately, we can't inherit genetically virtuous behavior. So where does it come from? You have to learn it. You have to practice it. Go back to the Parsons Tale or the Parsons Introduction. Go back to the Plowmans and compare that with the others. That made them gentlemen called be, and bade us follow them in such degree. In other words, it was their virtuous living that made us call them gentlemen. And that is what is meant, really, still today, with that word, gentlemen. Okay? And it's also what's meant by that word, not the man part. Okay? This is an abbreviated form of gentle lady. So, when people get all upset about people using the word gentleman or lady, it's because they don't really understand what the mentality is behind that. Okay? Will can the wise poet of Florence, and then we get another authority. Who? Dante. Two big, huge influences on Chaucer. Actually, there's more than that. There's several. And they're all foreign. Dante, Boccaccio that I already mentioned, Jean de Meun, and Jean de Meun, Romance of the Rose. Okay. Dante, I mentioned. Boccaccio. And there's another French one that I'm completely forgetting about. Okay. And so she mentions Dante. What does he do? She quotes Dante. Full sailed up riseth by his branches small, prowess of man. The excellence of a man seldom extends to the further branches of his family tree. Or, the sons are seldom worthy of the father. Why? Because the idea is the sons think they have what they have by birth rather than having to earn it, having to develop it. Okay? For God of his goodness desires that of him we claim our gentleness. God wants us to behave. How? Be ye perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. Okay? For of our elders may we nothing claim but temporal things, bodies, and goods, essentially. House, name. How many of you have read My Last Duchess? Great dramatic monologue by Robert Browning about a guy, a nobleman, Duke of Ferrara, apparently this really happened, okay, who had a 900 years old name, and he kills his most recent wife. Why? Because she didn't give him the respect he thought he deserved by his name. Okay? Also, every white knows this as well as I. If gentilessa were planted naturally, in other words, through sex, unto a certain lineage down the line, privately nor apart, then would they never find to do of gentilessa the fair office. That is, they would never work to practice it, to behave it out. Then, they might do no villainy or vice. Take fire, and carry it in the darkest house betwixt this and the Mount of Caucasus, and let men shut the doors and go inside. And yet what will the fire do? The fire will as fairly lie and burn as 20,000 men might it behold. Upon peril of my life, until it die. That is, until the fire dies. In other words, fire will do what? It will be fire. Okay? Here may ye see how well that gentry is not annexed to possession. Because folk neither do their operation, meaning they don't behave, always as doth the fire, low in his kind. Now, what is she suggesting there? Low birth, high birth. What can happen And I'm going to use another Harry Potter reference. You don't know anything about Harry Potter?
No.
You need to. A lot of good stuff in Harry Potter. As Dumbledore is telling people from book 2 on, it matters not how you are born. It matters what you become. As he tells Harry at the end of book 2, it is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities. Because our abilities come from what? Our birth, our natural talents. But our choices don't come from our birth. Similarly, we're told at the end of book 4, you can come from the greatest family and make bad choices. Or you can come from a low family and make good choices. You can be a Lucius Malfoy, or you could be a Rubeus Hagrid. Half giant, father died when you're young, Just outcast on every level. And be good and noble and true and honest and just. A true Hufflepuff. Not Gryffindor.
Oh, God.
Okay? Just a little aside here. The house J.K. Rowling holds up for the greatest praise, it's not Gryffindor.
No, but Hufflepuff.
Okay? It's Hufflepuff.
Oh, it was.
Why? Because they are those things. True, just, loyal, and hard workers.
And they get the short.
They don't give up, and they get the crap end of the stick all the time. Okay? So she goes on. It's not by birth, she says. For God knows, men may well often find a Lord's son do shame and villainy. Look at the dailymail.co.uk, maybe not recently, but in the last 10 years, and just look at Prince Harry's life. I mean, the poor guy is lost because he's royal and because his life sucks. I mean, yes, he's got all the riches he could want. Okay? But what happens? He is required to fulfill an image. He doesn't want to. Doesn't want to. Okay? That a Lord's son do shame and villainy, and he that will have his esteem for his noble birth, his gentry, for he was born of a gentle house, and had his elders noble and virtuous, and will not himself do gentle deeds. A Knight's Tale. Who is William's nemesis? Yeah, I can't remember his name. Great actor. I can't even remember the actor's name. I can see his face clear as day. But it's the guy who's noble birth and who acts how? Why does he want to marry, what's her name? Shannon, whatever her name is. Jocelyn. Because she's a trophy. That's it. And really? Why does he want to? To stop the other guy from getting her. Okay? He is not gentle, be he duke or earl, for villain sinful deeds, what? Make a churl. The king can be a churl. If a king, what? Acts churlish. And a churl, therefore, can be a king if a churl acts kingly. Okay? Gentleness is nothing but renown of your ancestors for their high bounty, which is a strange thing. Okay? To thy person, thy gentleness comes from God alone. Then comes our very gentlest, what? From grace. Those who are gentle do it not because it's inbred in them. It's God's grace that does it for them. It's nothing bequeathed to us with our place. So is it possible to, quote unquote, change your stars? Yes, by behavior. Use a quote that doesn't really apply, but I'm going to pretend I'm a John Donne and yoke together violent and two disparate things. John Milton's Paradise Lost. How many of you read it? One or two of you. We're told there that Satan says, better to rule in hell than serve in heaven. Okay? Thy gentleness comes from God alone. Then comes our very gentleness of grace. It was nothing bequeathed us with our place. What was Satan bequeathed with his place? In Milton's Paradise, or in Milton's cosmology, Satan's the highest of the created order. In other words, God, who's separate from everything created, and then all the created stuff, Satan's right up here at the top. He has everything, but what does he want? More.
Yeah.
He wants to be uncreated, meaning he wants to be God. That doesn't mean he wants to be killed. He wants to be like God, okay? But he can't. More authorities. Think how noble, as says Valerius, was the same Tullius Hostilius, that out of poverty rose to high nobleness or nobility. You know, people often, take this and they'll say, oh yeah, think of Bill Gates. Bill Gates was rich when he dropped out of Harvard and founded Microsoft. Don't think Bill Gates. Think Bill Clinton. And I'm about as far apart from Clinton as anybody could be, okay? But think of Bill Clinton. Think what he came from, dirt poor, to president, and filthy rich now. Think Clarence Thomas, even more dirt poor and black in the South in the 50s and 60s, to Supreme Court Justice. Think Barack Obama. Okay? Think Rick Santorum if you're a Republican, president. Don't think Mitt Romney, because born with a silver spoon in his mouth, or in his case, silver foot in his mouth. Opens it. He'll get going on a roll. He'll sound really good and just, oh yeah, I like NASCAR. A bunch of my friends own NASCAR teams. It's like, well, it's just not the right way to get across to them. Okay? So, he goes on and says, gentle is, she goes on and says, 1170, gentle is that does gentle deeds. And therefore, leave, husband, dear husband, I thus conclude, even though my ancestors were rude, yet may the high God, and I hope myself, grant me grace to live virtuously. My family might be born of the dirt, but I hope I can live virtuously. Now, what has she just done to this knight? Put him in his place. Because he's thinking, oh, God, you're ugly. I can't sleep with you because who's he supposed to be? Gilderoy Lockhart? I mean, he's supposed to be hot, handsome, okay, and high-born. Then am I gentle when that I begin to live virtuously and to avoid sin. And thereas you of poverty reprove me. She says, you hold my poverty against me. People still do today, right? Some people can't help being poor. And yet others say, well, come on, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. They don't have any blankety-blank bootstraps to pull themselves up by. The opportunities may not exist. Okay? And yet you reprove me. the high God on whom that we believe in willful poverty chose to live his life. And every man, maiden, or wife may understand that Jesus, heaven's King, he didn't choose vicious living, okay, or would not choose vicious living. Glad poverty is an honest thing. Think of the parson again. Think of the plowman and the descriptions we have of them compared to the descriptions of the friar, the nun's prioress, the pardoner, the sumner, and the monk, who all have taken one kind of vow of poverty or another, and none of them live it. Okay? Glad poverty is an honest thing. And she talks about Seneca and other clerks who say the same. So, to get down towards the end, she says, line 1201, poverty full often, or very often, when a man is low, makes his God and also himself to know. If a man is born into poverty, or is poor, she says, his poverty makes him better aware of himself and of God, meaning to rely on God. Poverty is a spectacle, as it thinks me, through which he may his very friends see, his true friends see. It's a spectacle. That means it's a lens. It focuses what the poor can see better. Poverty enables the poor to see who are really virtuous, who are really noble, who are really his friends. And therefore, sir, since that I now grieve you, of my poverty no more reprove me. Now, sir, of old age you reprove me. And certainly, though no authority were, no book, nor generals of honor say that men should an old wight do favor, that men, that is, should do favor, like Mary, an old woman, and call him father for your gentleness. And author shall I find, as I guess, auctority, shall I find, as I guess. Now there ye say, I'm foul and old. Then dread you not to be a cuckold. In other words, hey, look at it this way. I'm old and I'm ugly. You don't have to worry about me going and cheating on you. Who's going to want to cheat with me? For filth and ailed age, that is, also, might I thrive, are great wardens upon chastity. Right? I mean, this applies both sides. You know, who do you want to go sleep with? Somebody who's old and sick? You know, the pox breaking out, and you know they're walking around in their living syphilis factory? Okay. No, you're kind of like, I don't think so, thanks. I'll try. But nevertheless, since I know your delight, that is, I know what pleases you, what will please him? Turn you into, I don't know, Kate Upton or something. Turn you into a swimsuit model. Yeah, that'd be nice. She says, I shall fulfill your what kind of delight? Worldly. You want fleshly delight? I can do that. Choose now one of these things too, to have me foul and old until I die, and be to you a true humble wife, and never displease you in all my life, or have me young and fair and hot, and take your adventure of the repair. They shall be to your house because of me, or in some other place may well be. Choose. Which do you want? Me or me? And I kind of imagine she shows him what she can be. And the knight considers and sorely sighs, but at last he said in this manner, my lady and my love and wife so dear. She's got him. He doesn't even need to finish. My lady means what? What has he done? He just elevated her. My love and wife so dear, I put me in your wise governance. In other words, he gives her mastery. You choose. Chooseth yourself, which may be most pleasance and most honor to you and me also. She comes first. In other words, she just taught him the book of Ephesians, which is not, oh, let's each go 50-50. I go 50%, but you got to come. Nah, it's only 49%. All the way. Come on, right? No, it's 100%. It's not mattering what the other person does. Okay? I do no force the whether of the two, for as you liketh, it sufficeth me. He goes, I don't know. Whatever you want, that will please me. Then have I got of you mastery. And yet, what kind of mastery does she have? Since I may choose and govern as pleases me, certainly. Wife, said he, I hold it best. She says, kiss me. We be no longer wroth. For by my truth, I will be to you both. This is to say, both fair and good. I will be honest and true and virtuous, as I would have been if I was old and ugly. But I will be fair and beautiful also. I pray to God that I may starve wood, that is, go crazy, die crazy, unless I be to you also good and true as ever was wife since that the world was new. So what does he get? She says, you've given me mastery. Cool. And yet she becomes what? The very model of what it is he has wanted. In other words, she fulfills his every desire because he has fulfilled her every desire. So how does that tale fit with the prologue? The prologue is all about her getting 5 husbands at church door. Getting their money, they die. She gets another one, they die.
She's got to get what she wants first.
So how does this, do you expect this to come from the wife of Bath? No. No. But it does fit her character, right? Because of her emphasis on marriage. Okay? But what does Chaucer then do? Notice, 7/10 of this is almost religious exhortation. It's how to be ethical between people. That is religious. Okay? How to behave properly rather than how to get most of what you want out of life. Okay? Which is what some of the other tales are about. But all of them have this undercurrent of heavy moral teaching. And that's because the church in Chaucer's day is so screwed up that he's trying to correct it. Okay? Now, keep this tale in mind when you read Lonval for next week. And see how they work together, if they work together. And Sir Down in the Green Knight, too. All right, questions?